here for a while then, or you've been there for a while. Nice.
Jeb is having many activities here.
Oh, Jep is with you.
Yes.
Okay, so she's not in school.
Yes, this year she is a homeschooling.
Oh, okay.
Makes
Good.
travel easier.
Yes. So you are the teacher? Maybe Dum, do you do the teaching too?
Just looking for teacher.
Okay,
So,
shall we start now? Shall we start now? Nina, would you like to start?
Yes, I have something. I was so glad the question of ayatana and aramana was brought up, and it was explained there are really two different classifications. I remember I had so much confusion. When you read a sutta, sometimes you need a commentary to know, is it about aramana or is it about ayatana? And the Buddhist dictionary and several books in translations make it so misleading, the classification, when they speak of outer and inner, and you cannot make it out. But it was clear, because as soon as we speak about ayatana, it is about the association and the coming together with several realities. And if we keep that in mind, it's okay, it's clear, no confusion, I think. And there was another point, I was so happy with all the points brought up about Ikaro, because they are very basic, and we may think, oh, we have heard that before, that a cheek is a conventional notion, but hardness is a reality. And Ajahn was never tired to explain again about realities. It's not the words, but the realities, he says. And she's never tired of explaining seeing now and what is seeing. And I find that we can never hear that enough, like the falling away of each reality and never come back, gone forever. So all those points that are brought up and by questions by other people, I find it always useful. I can hear it again and again to consider it more. It's never enough.
Yes, on the first point about the ayatanas, I agree that usually if you look at dictionaries, everything is confused, and they think of Dhamma Ramana as being the same as ayatana. And also, as you say, when you read suttas, you have to know whether it's talking about aramana or ayatana, sometimes both in the same sutta. So it needs good understanding to appreciate what the context is and what it is referring to. And as you say, when it's ayatanas, it's always referring to the association or meeting of different dhammas, and it's always referring to realities only, paramatta dhammas, whereas aramana is any object which is being experienced, reality or concept. So it's important to understand the distinction between these terms, what is being referred to at this moment. Alberto, did you have anything further to add about ayatanas or anything?
Sorry, I think I better I remember Ajahn was was saying that ayatana is whatever has to be there at any moment. So yeah, if it's there, it's ayatana. It's it cannot not be there. Yeah.
What's there
And,
now? What is associating right now?
yeah, if it's there, it has to be now, because if it's not now, it's not there. Yeah. Many words, but the reality is now. So no way around it. So we can use you can think about the word, but it's the reality which really is there now, and ayatana, I think, is the really classification for which helps to bring about the reality now. So I think it's helpful for that reason. Yeah.
And I once asked why about seeing visible object. What about other teachers in the process that the seeing and the visible object are what are apparent now? So we talk about those realities associating now, which are apparent. So this is why we talk about seeing and not sampatichana or some other chitta. So the whatever is associating at this moment and can be known.
Right.
And Betty, on Monday, you were bringing up the discussion you started with Nina last Saturday and the topic of politics and so on. Anything you would like to share about the discussion with Nina and others who were not there on Monday?
Sure. For me, it was a very big lesson that you know, we get so involved with all the stories, and it happens whether it's politics or whatever other story it can be, and we get so involved with the story that I guess you can say, the mind becomes closed to the realities or the realizations that we're just dealing with stories, instead of understanding the characteristics of the realities. And this is a big problem that all of us have all the time, because we go through our daily lives and we get stuck in the stories, and there's nothing comes up in the mind to remind us to think of the characteristics of the realities, whether it's anatta-ness or whether it's anicca-ness or whether it's dukkha-ness, you know. And this is I think a big problem for everyone. And I guess I've always thought there should be some trigger that would trigger the thought to come up, but it doesn't happen. It's just all conditions, and whether it comes up, it's conditioned to come up. So that's basically the discussion we were having. And so I don't know what can be like a trigger to keep us on track, so to speak.
I think on Monday, after you brought it up, Ajahn was really stressing that there is no thing around. We think there is a world of people and politics and so on, right, but there's no thing at all. And the Buddha taught for so long to really consider that there is no self, no thing at each moment. So whatever arises by conditions, otherwise it's always something, the idea of something permanent,
Right.
whereas in fact there are just the dharmas which arise and fall away. And we discussed how very deep it is, and this is why he taught for so long, to really understand that there are just dharmas which are anatta. Because I think you may have asked about, sometimes we think there should be a schedule or something to do, but
Not so much
you
a schedule, but rather a trigger that would keep us on track.
right. But
You
and we always think of something to do, no matter as a trigger or a schedule, but in fact there are just dharmas which are anatta. And
True.
Kanti, I think she was talking about Virya and Kanti and the patience just to let go of the idea of self and wrong view, the idea that I can do something, I can
Right.
take some kind of action. So the listening more and more is just to have less attachment, less wrong idea about something being there or something to be done or a choice or selection that can be made. I think these were the main points. It was quite a useful discussion, I think.
And your idea of a trigger has been tried before. I remember there was one member who had the idea of an alarm going off every, I don't know how many, 5 minutes or 10 minutes or something as a reminder. But there's no such thing as something like that that can make one remember or bring to mind realities because of one's accumulated tendency to drift off onto other things, or just general lack of conditioned understanding to have that frequency of understanding. So it has to be accepted that understanding and awareness will be very occasional.
Right. But even though we know this, in the course of the day, it doesn't happen. But I know what John said, the more that we listen, read, and the more that we contemplate, think deeply, the more there will be conditions that even when you're stuck in the midst of all the stories of the day, there can be more and more chance for more and more conditions for those moments to arise, to think about the true nature of the reality, to think that, oh, this is not a panyati, this is a reality. This is nothing. It's just a reality that arises and falls away. It's very impermanent. It is unsatisfactory, or whichever of the reality, whichever of the characteristics. And that's basically what needs to be done. The more and more that we listen and read, and
I think it's the more and more there is the inclination, the tendency to listen, to read.
Yes.
Not the more we do, but the more it happens by conditions.
Yes.
And the more conditions there are for awareness and understanding.
I lost in one's usual stories and problems and disturbances, just naturally through the development of understanding, conditions for moments of wise reflection, but again, not we doing it or not us stopping and thinking wisely, but
that's what I mean.
Not through expectation, but just naturally it happens.
Right, exactly. That's true. There's a lack of patience, not enough patience.
The trigger is always an internal one.
Yeah.
Not an outside one.
Right. Oh, I didn't mean outside a trigger. I meant something arising in the mind to remind us.
Yeah.
And we can see how Kanti Parami, patience, has to develop with understanding in order to overcome the idea that I can do something, I can set a trigger, I can make a schedule, I can speed this up somehow, I can get rid of the kilesa.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot of patience developing with understanding to really understand that whatever arises now is conditioned, not in anyone's control at all.
I think that those who have a practice also have the idea that there are helpful triggers that that can help.
Yeah,
So
you know,
I think we need to be careful about that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good topic to bring up, Betty.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Anne, because you're going to be fading, is there anything you would like to bring up before you fade out and may help keep you awake?
It might. No, not at the moment. Perhaps before I fade out, there will be.
How are you today, Ikaro? Just before you arrived, Nina was mentioning the helpful discussion last time and all the discussion about cheek and chin and what we take and what we imagine to be true, but is just an idea, not the reality now.
Well, hello, Sarah. Hello, John. I
Hi.
really found the last discussion very, very useful, very, very good. I enjoyed it so much.
Good.
And what about now? What about any understanding now?
Well, even arahats never reach the ultimate goal of panya. So I am just following this path. Even knowing that I will never reach completely panya.
What do you
But
mean by the arahats never reach panya, or you never reach panya? What does this mean?
it's because only Buddha has completely reached panya, isn't it?
What is panya?
Understanding.
And can there be panya arising now?
Yes, given such conditions, panya can arise, but it's my viewpoint about it. Only Buddha can achieve completely, entirely panya.
Can, even in the case of the Buddha, can panya last? Can it arise at every moment?
No, that's a good question. If you consider the arahat position, well, panya rises, flourishes, and ceases to exist, and never return, never come again.
For
But
example,
about Buddha, I couldn't. I haven't an opinion. I haven't an idea about it.
for example, now, like last week, we talked about touching bodily experience,
Yes.
touching hardness, touching
Yes.
softness. So at a
Mm.
moment of touching, no matter it's our touching or the arahat's touching or the Buddha's touching, at any moment of touching, can there be panya at that moment?
Yes. Yes. Because there's no touch, there's no touching, it's only hardness, right? So brightness rises and ceases to exist, never returning, never coming back again.
So I think we have to understand what panya is and which chittas it arises with, because at moments of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and touching, these are chittas which experience their objects, and panya cannot arise with those chittas, even in the case of the Buddha. So it's not a matter of reaching panya. Panya is a cetasika which arises when there are conditions and falls away instantly. So at a moment of touching, there's no panya at that moment. But afterwards, there can be, panya can arise to understand that reality, the hardness that was touched, or the touching itself. But at the moment of touching, no panya. So it's not a matter of attaining or reaching panya, but it's a matter of understanding what panya is and when it arises. And in the beginning, like now, it has to be the beginning of panya, which develops the intellectual panya, which begins to develop and grow in order that it can condition the direct understanding. So like last week, when you said you found it helpful because there was consideration that it's only hardness that's touched, this is the beginning of wise consideration. And when there are moments of wise consideration, panya must be there at those moments of considering wisely. And that's why we have the discussion, so panya can begin to develop and grow.
Well.
But it never lasts, it falls away instantly, like all other realities.
But in order for there to be the highly developed panya of the Buddha, and less so the Arahants, there has to be beginning level of panya. Otherwise, it could never develop to the very high level panya.
Yes.
And what we are talking about here are the conditions that are necessary for the beginning level of panya to arise. Because firstly, it has to be known what can be the object of panya.
Yes.
And who develops panya?
Sarah, I didn't hear you.
Who or what develops panya? Because before you said something about the Buddha reaching panya or I reaching panya, but who or what develops panya in reality, in truth?
I think that's Chitta. Chitta reaches panya. Right?
Actually, it's the panya itself that develops, that accumulates, the panya with that chitta which accumulates and develops. So it's not I who develops panya or I who reaches panya. The panya itself with the chitta and other mental factors that develops, that accumulates, that conditions more panya in future.
Yes.
So the panya now, the wise considering now, conditions more panya in future, not I who can reach or attain or do anything.
Right. I understood. Well, I think so.
Panya is one of the wholesome mental factors, just like generosity, like consideration, like respect, like tranquility or calmness of the samatha kind. These are all mental factors that are wholesome, and they accumulate. When they arise, they accumulate.
Yes.
As they accumulate, they grow stronger.
So last week we talked about touching and touching hardness, softness. What about at a moment of hearing now? What does hearing hear now?
At following this thread of reasoning, hearing is also chitta, or better, sound.
Sound. So can hearing hear chitta or only sound?
Sound.
Only sound, right. And
only sound.
And can sound experience anything?
Sound doesn't experience anything.
Right.
If I understood it very well.
Yes.
Right.
As you say, because sound, it's a rupa, it cannot experience anything. And what about when it seems that I can hear your voice? Can hearing hear your voice or your words or only sound?
Only sound.
Right.
Because words, phrases, they are limited right?
They are nimitta and concepts about what has been heard. There are ideas
Yes.
about what has been heard. And the hearing now, who hears or what hears?
Chitta experiences
What
sound,
kind?
right?
Right. What kind of chitta experiences sound?
Now let me see. Uh, a, a chitta related with the hearing door.
Right.
I cannot elaborate very well, but
Yeah. So
well, I think that's it.
is hearing a chitta? Is hearing consciousness a chitta?
No, chitta experiences hearing, but chitta,
I thought you said that chitta experiences the sound.
yes,
So
but
actually, hearing itself is chitta. So hearing is the chitta which experiences the sound, just as the body consciousness or touching is the chitta which experiences hardness, and seeing is the chitta which experiences visible object.
right.
Okay, so hearing.
Okay.
Chittas, yes.
Yes, I understood the difference. Very,
Okay.
very clever.
And each chitta is accompanied by 7 or more cetasikas, mental factors.
Yes.
So at moments of hearing or seeing or touching, each chitta is accompanied by 7 universal cetasikas that arise with every chitta. But panya is not one of these cetasikas, so it cannot arise at that moment. So gradually, by understanding these details, then it becomes clearer that when panya arises or when passa contact arises and so on.
Yes.
For example, passa has to contact the object in order for hearing to hear that sound. So passa has to arise with every chitta.
Yes.
So this is why it's helpful to understand about the details, to really understand that there are just chittas, cetasikas, and rupas arising by different conditions. No one there to do anything.
Yes. I think I've understood you. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Ikaro.
Yes.
Does anyone else want to add anything further?
For now, that's enough. I like this discussion we have now, but I will follow the rest of the meeting. Right?
Thanks, Ikaro.
The pleasure is mine.
You're muted. You're muted, Anne.
We can't hear you, Anne.
Here we go. I found myself quite surprised last week when we were talking about touching, and Ajahn asked, what touches? Who touches? And what is it that touches? And I realized that I'm very used to talking about seeing and hearing, but I really had to, I was almost shocked at how slow it was to figure out touching, tasting, and smelling. And I think it's, obviously there's a lot of moments of thinking it's, I'm touching, I'm tasting, I'm smelling something, but somehow it seems clearer when talking about seeing or hearing. So it was a good thing to have had that discussion, to have that discussion occur, because it was a real wake up that we have to, we talk so much about seeing, because there's seeing most of the time, all the time. Well, not all the time. There are other jitas in between, but we think we see all day. So I was quite surprised. It surprised me that, well, I guess it's just another indication of our understanding is still very, very, very weak and at a very early stage, because it's, and how much of it is intellectual, because intellectually the seeing, the seeing visible object, the seeing door, that seems quite clear intellectually, but the other didn't. So it's just a comment that we need to listen and listen and listen, consider and consider and consider. I think I guess I had seldom considered about touching, smelling, and tasting, although I thought I knew that they were the same, and they are. Intellectually, I know that they are, but it was a surprise at how I didn't really know what I thought I might know. That's just a comment.
Jonathan said last week the word touching can also be misleading, because the bodily experience is not just touching like this. It can be anytime,
Right.
without any idea that I am touching at all. There is that countless times, even now in a split second, there are moments of bodily experience.
Yes.
Between the other sense doors.
Just the temperature we feel, or the hardness against where we're sitting, but also internally, if there's stomach ache or any kind of feeling hungry, this is all, again, experiencing through body sense.
Yes, and I said a minute ago that we're accustomed to seeing, and we think we're seeing all the time. And as you were speaking, Sarah and Jonathan, I just thought, well, there's touching all the time too.
Yes, so common. Yes,
all the time, all the time.
Only the word touching may be misleading.
That's the point. Yes,
the body sense. It was said at the discussion. The body sense is all over the body, or inside or outside.
Yes. Yeah.
The fact is, it's the seeing and the hearing that appear. So the fact that there is also experiencing through the body sense all the time, but we're not aware of it in a conventional sense, doesn't mean we need to be more aware of it, because the development of Dhamma is, the understanding is about understanding what appears, not trying to understand things that are not.
Yes. Yes, that's so true.
Sarah, can we say that the word appears well is just it's another word for panya, for understanding? Because that's what it does.
I think when it appears well, it's usually referring to panya, which has been developed. For example, at moments of satipatthana, when it's direct understanding, like if it's just moments of the panya, like I was chatting about with Ikro, moments of wise considering, that it's just softness that's touched now, then that softness doesn't appear well, because it's just being considered, just thinking wisely about it. So it's not yet appearing well. So unless it's direct understanding, we can't say that panya, the object, appears well to that panya.
So appears well is another word for direct understanding.
Direct understanding, and then it's just begins to appear well until it appears more and more well.
Yeah, I see. There was an interesting discussion last week when Ajahn was using the question to a beginner, what is life now? And then she followed that by saying that only the person who considers the Buddha's teachings can answer correctly. And I thought that was quite deep, actually, that even the Einstein or the great scientists can't answer a simple question accurately, because, well, it'll always be something, won't it? It'll always be hand, foot, or table, or chair. But I think it's like a diagnostic question that you're quickly finding out how much somebody knows about reality by that one question.
Without the Buddha's teaching, it will always be something, someone that makes up life now. So if you ask your son, who is a scientist, what is life now, then he will talk about atoms and so on. But it's still the something that is there, not the understanding of Dharma as no one, nothing, empty, gone completely.
Yes, in fact, that question can be boiled down to just the question of what is touched. Even that will not be answered according to the truth.
No.
That will always be something.
And who touches, who experiences those atoms or the softness or the hardness? It'll always be the idea of someone who does the touching.
Yes,
So
because we often hear that the mindfulness, non-Buddhist mindfulness, is about the present moment, but actually this question shows that nobody can understand what it means by the present moment unless they've considered the Buddhist teachings. I think that's a very powerful sentence, actually. It's a reminder that what is actually there, and it can only be understood by somebody who considers the Buddha's teachings. Very powerful, even one sentence.
I remember one session in Vietnam, we just started off saying the purpose of studying the Buddha's teachings is to understand what life is now. But one has to hear and consider so much in order for that to make any sense. Like we were discussing with Ikro, if there isn't the understanding that it's just the hearing which hears the sound, however much you talk about the present moment, there's no understanding of what life is, what the realities are at this very moment. So that's why it's so deep and profound, and it's not enough just to say it's about the present moment or it's about life now, because what is life now? That's the point.
Yes. And the other thing I was reading, I just read the beginning of the Visuddhimagga, which we just gave a couple of sentences, the fact that if a person doesn't understand about conditions, then they cannot develop the path, because it will always be the idea of self developing. So it's so important to understand what is meant by that word conditions. Reality is conditioned. Otherwise, the path can't even begin.
Right. It will always be the idea of I doing something, making a schedule, setting off an alarm, finding a shortcut, following a practice without the understanding of conditions.
Yes, and that thing about the alarm, that even that you remember the Dharma, it doesn't mean to say that at that moment you will pursue it, because you have other attachments by conditions. So you might well remember about reality and then still get dragged off by your accumulation. So it's not just a question of remembering, it's a question also of other kusala at that moment, other wholesomeness at that moment.
And what about even at this moment of discussing Dharma, countless moments of attachment, countless moments of distraction, countless moments of ignorance. That's life. No matter we set up a schedule for a Dharma discussion, but Panya comes down to just one brief moment and then gone. and in between countless moments of attachment and ignorance. So it's not about the situation or the circumstances, but it's about understanding of what appears just so very briefly and then gone. And this is the way to understand that dhammas are conditioned. No one can make panya last. No one can make hearing last. No one can make seeing last. No one can make the pleasant object that's experienced last. Whatever arises falls away immediately by those conditions.
Yeah.
And understanding how the touching now or the hearing now just arises by its own conditions, falls away instantly, and the hearing or the touching now completely different. This is a way to begin to understand that no one can choose, no one can select, no one can make any reality arise, because who can determine what touching will touch now, bodily experience will touch now, or what hearing will hear now? Each moment's conditioned.
And I can see how that will condition detachment, because attachment is sort of hopeless in that. The more
clinging to a particular object, trying to experience a particular object, trying to have pleasant objects only experienced is hopeless. Yes, so understanding leads to more acceptance and detachment of whatever is conditioned, because it understands that what arises now cannot be any other way. It depends on the meeting, the association of dhammas, and the conditioned nature of each moment.
Yes.
Even as we speak.
I was reading in the Human Types, I've got the book here. I can't find a particular quote, but it talks sometimes about emancipated in 8 ways. And I'm not quite sure. I assumed it meant the 2 cheetahs that experience nibbana for each of the stages of enlightenment. But have you heard of this expression, emancipated by 8 ways?
Yes, Nina will probably can say more. Nina, can you say more about it? We can't hear you, Nina. Nina, can you unmute?
Doesn't work. Yeah, okay. What was the question?
I've read in the Human Types about the phrase "emancipated in 8 ways."
Yes.
Have you heard of that? I can't find the original quote now, but about 3 or 4 times it says a person is emancipated in 8 ways. But what are these 8 ways?
I don't know. I have to know the context. Yeah.
Okay, I'll
say 8 ways doesn't mean anything to me.
Right, I'll try and find out what it said from that. Yeah, I can't find the original quotes now. I've just had a look at it. But I remember somebody said about the number of people who had attained jhana and arahatship was less than the number of people who obtained arahatship with insight alone. Do you know where that quote comes from, or where that is in the Tipitaka?
Yes, I heard that before. Yes, Ajahn mentioned it.
She's mentioned it. That might be from the commentary to the Human Types.
Alan, I thought I heard.
Yes, you are right. Yeah, it's very clearly explained in the Human Types too. Not everybody has to attain jhana, but some people think it is absolutely necessary, but that is not so, not according to the teachings.
So Nina, what you heard is that people have attained without jhana more than with jhana, no?
I understood that from Ajahn.
Yeah, so Alan, that's what I've heard. I mean, without jhana is more than with jhana.
Yes, I've heard that.
we
And
also
I just
one of
don't know
the
where it
commentaries.
is.
Yes,
It's in the commentaries.
yes.
I'll have to find the commentary to that particular book. Yeah.
But
Because
jhana is so difficult, so it's understandable that without jhana more often. And
Yes.
also for the Buddha, after he attained enlightenment, it is not absolutely necessary. It depends on people's accumulations. But
because a lot
before his enlightenment, he had the teachers who taught the jhanas.
Yes, because a lot of people, as you say, have this idea that you have to develop jhanas.
Yeah,
first.
yeah, I
Yeah.
heard that. Yeah,
I need to know how to refute that, really.
but what is jhana? Do they understand that?
What is meant? What's the definition of jhana? Because I've heard two definitions. One is burning up.
Yes, there's also another one in the commentary that even when you attain enlightenment, there is jhana citta, and it is the same intensity as jhana citta. The experiencing of nibbana is the same intensity as this jhana, because nibbana is very deep, very special.
So is it? So jhana, as I understand it, it can mean burning up, or it can mean thinking closely on the object.
Yes, two
Those-
different
those-
definitions. Yeah.
Yes, both of those two things, I think. So we even can have a kusala jhana in the sense that, for instance, a football match, you might get absorbed in the football match and not pay attention to anything outside you. That's a kind of a level of jhana, which is thinking closely on the object. Is it right to say
So
that?
when we think of jhana condition, it is also with akusala citta. Yes.
Right. So jhana condition. So we've got two
Jhana
different.
condition, yeah.
Yeah, I see.
Always
Yeah.
kusala.
Sorry.
Always.
But not
Kusala.
jhana condition, yes.
Yeah. So
Oh,
two
yeah,
I
things.
think you're talking about several different topics here.
One at a time is all the church. Otherwise it's so confusing, yeah.
Yes, so we got two different things. Jhana condition is different from the word jhana, or jhana, attaining jhana, which has to be kusala. Yeah.
Right. And if you're talking about jhana, for example, with enlightenment, so there can be enlightenment, any stage of enlightenment without jhana, and then jhana may have been attained prior to enlightenment, or it may be the base for enlightenment. It means it might have risen just before enlightenment, or for those, or there may be enlightenment without jhana as base, but then, as Nina said, the intensity of the lokuttara citta is appana samadhi. The samadhi is of that degree. So in that case, it is lokuttara appana citta at that moment. So it is jhana. So there are two different kinds of jhana. So this is quite a detailed and deep topic.
Yes. Yeah.
And then you are also talking about jhana paccaya, which is completely different topic.
I can see how these details are important to be able to refute the idea that you need to do jhana first. Otherwise, it can go wrong from the very beginning. Because jhana is extremely
And in
difficult.
different contexts, yes, you have to know the context and the different meanings. Otherwise, it's very confusing to speak about jhana in general.
And in
Yeah.
reality, no one can ever do jhana. No
Talk
one.
on the phone. Please, Ryan.
Hi, Robert. Are you there? Are you trying to say something?
Yeah, Ellen, you can see the sutta where it mentions the white lotus ascetics and how they are much less than the ones who aren't jhana labby, the arahats like that. So there's that sutta.
Oh,
Also-
which what's the sutta again? The White
I
Lotus.
forget the name, but look up white lotus, the white lotus one, and it mentions there the different numbers.
Okay, all right.
Also, we can see that the ones who have jhana, who are jhana labhi, they have to have mastery of the jhanas. So they have to be able to enter and exit at will. It's not like someone who just attains the first jhana and, you know, with great effort and manages to attain that, and maybe a week later they can attain it again. It's someone who has no problem at all attaining jhana. It becomes their daily life almost.
Right.
Someone like Moggallana, for example.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
so it's extremely difficult to become an arahat with all the jhanas, the jhana labhi arahat. That's why the sukha vipassika, the dry insight worker, has to be the way these days, because you know, although it's not as attractive maybe as the one who's got skill in jhana, it's really the only one available to us much lesser beings, you know, than these amazing jhana labhi arahats at the time of the Buddha.
Yes, yeah. And
Another thing, also in the commentaries, they mention after a certain amount of time, there's only the Sukha Vipassika arahats available. You know, after, I forget the exact number of years, but 500 years or something like that, there's no more of the jhana labhi arahats left. But there is still the Sukha Vipassika arahats. And then at this time now, where we are, according to one commentary, there's only the possibility of anagami. There can't be arahats even.
Yeah.
So we can see that having these details from the commentaries, like you were saying, is crucial. Otherwise, people will spend a lot of time trying to develop jhana. And, you know, even if they did manage to attain first jhana, it's still not going to be an advantage to them when it comes to attaining anything higher regarding insight. You know, it's a dead end these days, really.
Yeah. And I remember something that Ajahn said about that the person who develops jhana must understand the disadvantage of seeing now, because the disadvantage of seeing is that it's followed by attachment. And that's very difficult to see the disadvantage of seeing now. So it just kind of shows how difficult jhana is. Because people today, they like to see their friends, they like to go to the cinema and theatre, and then they like to sort of disappear and meditate to attain jhana.
Yeah, well, I'm sure there are people who really do endeavour to have sense restraint and don't go to the cinema and do spend their time trying to avoid sense pleasures and so on. But I mean, I still think it's what they would be better off doing is learning to develop insight, you know, in daily life. They have to understand that about the jhana mastery level that it takes before jhana becomes second nature to them, because there can be no insight developed inside jhana. It's always after leaving jhana, for the jhana labhi, for the jhana master, he can have insight into those jhana factors if it's his daily life. It's if he can, you know, if he's quite conversant with jhana and can leave and enter, you know, as part of his daily life. But for us, our daily life is involved with the pleasures of the senses. So we have to learn to understand those moments with lopa and seeing and all those other things, like you were saying. So it is a really critical thing, I think, these days.
Yeah, yeah.
On a website that I'm a moderator on, Dharma Wheel, I mean, I'd say 30% of the discussions are about people debating what jhana is and, you know, wanting to have jhana, but they don't seem to get this point.
Right.
That it has to be daily life.
Yeah.
I mean, so Robert, I don't think, I mean, in your experience, anyone who believes that jhana is the way to go has been convinced by argument that it's wrong.
Well, I mean, what I find, Stu Kinder, is if people, they come up against the commentaries where they talk about Sukha Vipassika. So what happens is it becomes a little bit of it gets even worse. So then they decide the commentary must be wrong because they see that the Buddha recommended jhana in the suttas. So then they reject the Theravada tradition, and you're on a slippery slope to going completely wrong. So I don't know if people go that far, what can be done?
Oh, because
Nothing's gonna convince them.
because as you were saying, even those who um, are enlightened by way of jhana have to know the realities now, right? So
The jhana is the reality.
even they know that this is the path, that is not. So if you don't have that understanding, then you're not going to have it, and you believe that another path is the way.
Right.
So and what I'm saying is that for even for us, we can see that no one can convince us that to go and try jhana out, because we know that nothing is more valuable than understanding what appears now, the teachings about realities and so on. So even, and this is what is going to be accumulated in the end, that is the path. And that's what answers, that's the answer to Alan's initial comment, that why there are more Sukha Vipassikas. So whoever has heard the Buddha's teachings and understood knows that this is the path. So jhana is not. So even the person who has, in the end, is enlightened by way of jhana, even he gives importance to developing the Noble Eightfold Path and not jhana.
Right. Right. But how to help people see this? I mean, I said once on DSG that I found Nina's very detailed explanations to Bhikkhu Bodhi about jhana and Sukha Vipassika and so on so helpful for understanding this, and increased my confidence in the commentaries a lot, because she was able to quote the commentaries. Because, I mean, I think people have to rely on the text to a certain extent initially.
Robert, I've always understood that the path of concentrating to attain various levels of jhana was always a practice that was done before the Buddha even taught his path. So that if you look at it, if that was something that was taught before the Buddha's path, is not leading to understanding. They claim that after the fourth jhana, that one, then the path toward, or the conditions, well, they don't use that word, to develop understanding would arise. But if that were the case, then they obviously wouldn't need the Buddha. If that were to happen even before the Buddha came along, right? If they fourth jhana,
very good point.
Understanding. So so that supposedly would have happened before the Buddha even came along, but it never happened. And only with the teachings of the Buddha that we have this path to develop understanding, and it's not jhana.
Right. So yeah, like I was saying, Betty, and Nina can probably confirm if I'm reading this right. In the Satipatthana Sutta, any object, any reality can be an object for Satipatthana, whether it's the jhana factors after one leaves the jhana, or lopa or dosa, or even the nivarana can be object, and they can lead to enlightenment. So it's not that jhana should be preferenced, it's just that for the jhana labhi, who by nature and by accumulations has those abilities, those amazing abilities, that becomes their daily life, that becomes a suitable object for them.
Yes, but these are people who don't understand the nature of conditions, because you can't, it's not possible, there's no views, no me, I, whatever, to say, okay, I'm only going to develop this condition as the path. I mean, jhana is a condition. So you cannot dictate and say, I will develop jhana as a route to becoming enlightened, because it depends on conditions. It doesn't depend on the idea of an I developing jhana, because that's basically what it is. If these people are spending their whole lives concentrating in developing jhana, it doesn't show that they really understand conditions, right?
Right. Okay. In any event, in these days, it's no longer possible to have the jhana labhi. You know, whether someone can attain the first jhana, I mean, that might be possible, but certainly there's not these sort of amazing humans that can now attain all the jhanas, the 8 jhanas at will, anytime they want to, and have mastery over them. So at this time, the only path.
How do you know that?
Inference, and like I said, from the commentary, saying that, yeah, from the commentary about the fact that after a certain amount of time, only Sukha Vipassaka Arahata around.
Because I remember Ivan used to bring this up all the time when we had discussions years ago, that the people who were basically listening to the Buddha, perhaps many were Brahmins, and that was the methodology that the Brahmins used in those days. So they continued that same methodology even after they heard the teachings of the Buddha. And we know that if you haven't heard the teachings of the Buddha, then there's the development of the understanding is just not going to occur. So, but jhana is jhana, if one, well, not one, but if there are conditions for the developing of jhana for a certain person, it would have to be along with other conditions, not just jhana. There would have to be other conditions present, not just jhana.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's a separate path. The path of vipassana and the path of jhana are quite different. So that's why people these days, or some people, think that if they have jhana, if they can get jhana, it's going to be much easier to have vipassana, but that's not true.
It occurred before the advent of the Buddha. So I don't know how, I never understood that myself, how jhana, how one would develop understanding through jhana.
It's just it's the same path. It's one of understanding realities. It's just that for the jhana labhi, the realities can be the various jhana factors. So it's possible to have insight into those jhana factors. But if there's insight into lopa, that's just as much an important insight as there.
Jhana, you can get insight into lopa?
Yeah, there can be insight. Lopa can be taken as a direct object for satipatthana, and so can the jhana factors for the jhana labhi. But one is not superior to the other as an object.
This is what I don't understand, so I'm not sure.
I can add something. There is a text in the suttas, and I think it's Majjhima Nikaya, that the Buddha said, meditate, here are the roots of the trees. And meditate is the translation of jayati. And then the commentary explains there is the jhana of the lakkhana jhana, of the 3 characteristics, that is vipassana. And there is the jhana of the 40 subjects of meditation, and that is jhana as we usually think of all the tranquility. So 2 kinds is explained very clearly in the commentary.
Aramanu Pani jhana, that was the mundane jhana that Alan was referring to, and Lakkhanu Pani jhana at moments of enlightenment.
Yeah,
when,
right.
Yeah. Regardless of whether mundane jhana has been developed. I think one of the suttas which mentions the commentary which mentions a number of people who were enlightened without jhana and how there were more without is Sushima sutta, Alan, in Samyutta
Yes,
Nikaya.
yes, yes, I remember,
Susima
yeah.
Sutta, I think.
Very clear.
Yes.
Very clear, yeah.
And John, you were going to say something? No. Also, I think that when we consider about the different kinds of chittas, for example, there are 54 Kamawatra chittas, and then we read about the 15 kinds of jhana, vipaka jhana, and the Kiriya jhana chittas, and then the arupa jhana, and then 8 lokuttara chittas. And this is all included in the 89 chittas before we read about the details, count the details of those who have become enlightened with jhana as base. So 8 lokuttara chittas which arise without jhana as base. So when we study the details of the Abhidhamma, I think it becomes clearer and clearer how mundane jhana doesn't need to be the base for enlightenment, because otherwise there wouldn't be these 121 chittas. And for those who think that jhana is so necessary and think they can follow a practice and do something, do they even understand what is meant by calm or samatha at this moment? Or is it just following a practice with attachment, trying to get a result, trying to attain something, but not even beginning to understand what calm with detachment is at this very moment? For example, if there's no understanding of metta now, and when the citta is calm, different from moments of attachment, metta can never be developed. And it's never developed by someone doing something, because it's a conditioned reality which is anatta. So right from the very beginning, understanding has to be there, no matter we're talking about samatha bhavana or vipassana bhavana.
And I think people's use of developing jhana is a bit of a giveaway, because jhana is the culmination of the development of tranquility, calmness, kusala of different kinds. So when people have the notion of developing jhana, they are thinking about just concentrating on something to become absorbed in it. And that is entirely a misconceived idea, because it's actually the development of calm that just as the development of insight leads to enlightenment. One doesn't talk about developing enlightenment. It's developing insight, understanding, and the culmination of that is enlightenment. And so with jhana, it's the development of wholesome mental states and the associated tranquility. And then if that is developed sufficiently, it results in jhana citta arising.
So maybe John, instead of talking about whether or not jhana is the basis for developing insight, it may be more useful to talk, when people bring up jhana, to talk about what is calm, what is kusala, and how kusala can be accumulated, increased and developed.
Well, that's a useful thing to discuss, certainly. So, but we can't generalize about what will be beneficial for different. But yes, it's certainly useful to talk about the conditions for development of wholesome calmness, or any kind of kusala citta for that matter, without it being associated with the attainment of eventual attainment of jhana, certainly for its own sake.
Like death now, I was having a chat with a friend yesterday, a swimming friend here, and her son was killed outright in a car accident not so long ago. So we were talking about death, and I was trying to mention a few helpful things from the Buddha's teachings. So there may be conditions to reflect wisely on death, how it can come any time, and life is so short. So why be so concerned about trying to attain this or that when life can end right now? So there can be moments of calm when there is wise reflection. But if one tries to think about death in order to have calm, in order to develop samatha, then it's just motivated by attachment. So that understanding can only be now at the moment of reflection, whether it is calm or whether it is clinging. So without any understanding, there can never be any development of calm, even a little in daily life. So understanding has to be there right from the start to begin to know what calmness is and how the citta is calm and when it is calm and what the purpose is. Because usually we take clinging for being calm, or we think that just because I'm thinking of metta or just because I'm thinking of death, it should be calm or it should be samatha, but it's not like that at all. And right from the beginning, each moment of calm, each moment of wise consideration is conditioned, not in anyone's will. No one can make calm arise. No one can make the reflection wise, like reflecting on Dharma now. Who can make it kusala at this very moment? It just depends on conditions right now, whether it's kusala, whether there is calm there. Not anyone who can do anything about it. So it has to come back to the understanding at this moment. If someone just thinks they want to develop jhana or develop samatha or go to a quiet place and focus, it shows no understanding, no consideration of what calmness is from the very beginning. Because it's just for me trying to have calmness and goodness and samatha development for me and my practice. But the teachings are all about understanding dhammas as anatta and giving up the attachment to self, not fueling it on and on.
And people try to focus on one thing, and they think that concentration, and that is the same as calm. And so many misunderstandings about this.
Yes. As soon as there's an idea of concentrating or trying to concentrate on an object,
Yeah.
for sure, it's bound to be concentration with attachment. And the concentration that's apparent in daily life, like when driving or cooking or fixing one's computer, it's almost always concentration with attachment. Yes. Or concentrating on, for example, we've been talking about touching hardness, but if there's concentrating on hardness experienced through the body sense, it's just clinging, trying to focus on hardness. It's not any understanding of hardness, not any calm at that moment at all. So usually the wrong practice is taken for the right practice all the time.
So it's important to explain about the different types of citta and what is akusala citta, because then otherwise there's no idea how many moments of akusala citta in a day. So when learning more about the different types would help, like mana, many examples in daily life, just thinking of anything can be mana already, that would help a lot. So the basics.
And just understanding, like we were discussing with Ikaro, that hardness is experienced just for a moment and then gone completely. So who can concentrate on it? Who can make it last? By conditions, it falls away instantly. No one can make hardness last longer because that's the idea of I can do something, but it's impossible.
And who can understand the different types of citta since they are gone immediately?
Yes.
When one thinks about it, they're gone already.
So I think it's quite useless to talk about the intricacies of jhana citas when there is no understanding at all now of what kusala is, or what calmness is, or how dhammas now are anatta, or what is experienced through the body sense, because it's like the whole basis is wrong, because it's the idea of I following a practice or doing something. Alberto or anyone else, do you have anything you'd like to add on this topic?
Hi. Yes. About jhana, yeah. It's just we're talking about samatha bhavana, and we know that bhavana is not something that anyone can choose to have, because it's because it's with understanding. So no matter if it's vipassana or samatha, there's no point sitting and concentrating on anything, I think. Otherwise, it's the self. It's developing. It's not the understanding which develops, but it's just more accumulation of atta instead of anatta, and that cannot be bhavana for sure. And also, I think Robert mentioned that nowadays only sukha vipassaka. There can only be sukha vipassaka, and jnanalabhi is cannot be jnanalabhi nowadays. So why trying to be something which cannot be at all? If there cannot be jnanalabhi individuals at this time, why trying to be one? I don't see the point really. I think we just better to accept this fact and go on with listening and understanding the teachings, and without any expectations, even of vipassana bhavana. But for sure, not sitting and focusing or concentrating, or I mean, I can't think of anything useless than that, really.
I'd like to explain a couple of Pali terms for those who may not be familiar with them. One term that's been used just recently is sukha vipassaka. And this refers to the person who attains enlightenment without having jhana as the basis of that enlightenment. Sometimes referred to as the dry insight jhana. So that is attains insight just from the development of understanding of realities in daily life, Sukha Vipassaka. And the other one, Jnana Labhi, means one who is highly skilled or has mastery of jhana. That's what the term Jnana Labhi means, has mastery of jhana. And as Robert was explaining, the person who has mastery of jhana can enter jhana or attain jhana at will and for extended period of time, and that so has developed the conditions for jhana to such, has developed the understanding associated with attainment of jhana to such a high degree.
And I think the point is, as Ajahn often stresses, that when there is understanding of the path taught by the Buddha, and the understanding of realities as conditioned, I think Kin made the point, it doesn't matter what the object of understanding is, no matter it's ignorance or seeing or attachment, jhana, it doesn't matter, because whatever arises is anicca, dukkha and anatta. It's inherently unsatisfactory, not worth clinging to. So it makes no difference whether the object is attachment or kindness or jhana. So the one who really understands the path and develops understanding, there's no concern about developing or attaining jhana, because whatever is conditioned, whatever appears, can be the object of insight. And the path is the eradication of defilements and enlightenment. It's not the attainment of jhana. So it just depends on accumulations, what kind of kusala is developed, but less and less clinging to having certain experiences or attaining jhana, because there's more and more detachment towards whatever is conditioned at this moment, whatever appears that can be the object of insight. So if someone sets as their goal or would like so much to develop samatha bhavana and experience jhana, it shows there isn't a firm understanding of the path taught by the Buddha, the understanding of conditioned realities. It's still the idea of I who would like to have this experience or do something. And instead of bringing the calm and understanding they would like, it just brings more and more attachment, more and more clinging to the self. Sita or Maeve or Tadao, do you have anything to add? Or anything you'd like to bring up? Anyone?
Just on last Monday's discussion, I think it was Monday, maybe it was Saturday, when I asked Ajahn about sense door and mind doors, and how I thought that, or it felt like there were more sense doors than mind door. And I found that discussion really very, very helpful. Because like I said, it feels like there's a lot more sense door. But Ajahn sort of made it clear that even though we think it's sense door happening, it's actually mind door going over the objects that have been experienced through the various sense doors. So I found that really a good discussion.
Like the example of bodily experience or touching softness, it might seem that I'm touching my cheek for a long time, but that's because it's not understanding that what is touched, the hardness, is just for such a brief moment. and all the ideas about my cheek and the softness is all thinking. So it's countless mind or processes that follow just the very briefest of moments of experience through the body sense. And the same with seeing, because we think that we're seeing people, it seems that the seeing lasts and the seen lasts, but actually the moment of seeing what is visible is so very brief. And then so many mind or processes, something, an idea, a person, and so on. So when it's said that the eye door covers up the mind door, it's just because of the ignorance and wrong view, the idea that there is something or someone there. But in fact, just the moment of seeing is so brief. And as understanding develops, experiencing through the mind door becomes more apparent. It becomes more apparent there's so much more thinking than there is seeing, for example. The opposite of how life seems. It seems to see and hear all the time, but that's just because there's no understanding that it's just a physical object that's seen and then falls away immediately. Just sound that's heard falls away immediately, and the rest is thinking and lost in fantasies, and dreams and ideas.
So back to those beings who develop jhana, it has to be known that the sense doors are dangerous, and so that's why, I mean, they've obviously got accumulations for it, those who develop real jhana. So they know that those sense door activities are dangerous, so to speak. And so this is why there's that wisdom to know that, and that then there is the development of kusala jhana.
Like now, yeah. Like now, seeing which sees visible objects so briefly, but then attachment is instantly, and then thinking about the stories, the dreams, the ideas. So more and more disturbance in life just because of the seeing, the hearing, or the bodily experience. So understanding the danger of that attachment and how it is the opposite of calmness. There are conditions for there to be less and less clinging through reflection on one of the objects of samatha with understanding, and with understanding of what calmness is, and understanding of attachment which arises so quickly even now. So it's all through the natural process of the development of understanding, but not by eye focusing on an object and trying to be calm or trying to have this special experience. It's just through the understanding of the danger of attachment and the nature of calmness and the nature of what is kusala and akusala. Without that understanding, without any understanding of what is kusala, what is akusala, what is calmness, what is attachment, impossible for any calm to develop.
So they see that, just briefly on your comment about dangerous, the person developing samatha sees how the sense door experiences are a condition for attachment and other akusala to arise in relation to those objects. But as Sarah said, the danger is in the attachment rather than in the sense door experience.
Or the object.
Or the object.
Yeah, good point.
So you have to be very sincere. And here comes in the satyaparami, the perfection of truthfulness. Because you may think, oh, I see the danger of seeing and hearing, but that may not be true, because we all like seeing and hearing and we want to go on living. So if we are not sincere, it's impossible to develop any kusala.
As soon as we wake up, we would like to see and hear instantly, immediately. We enjoy the clinging so much. So it's better to understand and be sincere, as you say, than to kid ourselves that we see the danger and don't want to have sense experiences when it's not truthful.
Yes, that's why Ajahn emphasizes so much Satyaparami, the perfection of sincerity, truthfulness.
When we were
And
giving...
Azita,
Go on.
yeah, Azita, the people who develop samatha, they see danger in attachment to sense objects and therefore aversion also. And the difference is that those who understand the Buddha's teachings see danger in ignorance. Hence, any reality is to be known. It's not just the sense objects and attachment to sense objects, but everything. So anytime, any reality is to be known.
And so, Nina, you were talking about Satya Parami. So is that if there is development of samatha, like kusala samatha, that is there also the paramis developing at that time? Or at least some of
Only if there is no self involved, because it cannot be a parami, and it has to be right understanding of reality.
Right.
Otherwise, there's no perfection.
And when you talk about developing samatha, we have to distinguish between samatha bhavana, the development of calmness leading to jhana without the understanding of realities as not self. So then, as Nina said, it's impossible for the paramis to develop because it's not the path, it's not the path leading to enlightenment. But if we're talking about the development of the path leading to enlightenment and the development of paramis with the development of right understanding of realities, then samatha develops with those moments of understanding, because samatha, passaddhi, cetasika, it arises with all kinds of kusala, and the samatha that develops with satipatthana and the path is the higher calmness. So it develops naturally with the understanding of realities. So it's not that if there is the development understanding of realities, there is no samatha. That's not correct, because samatha develops with right understanding, and it's higher samatha than samatha without the understanding of dhammas and anatta, because it is the path, part of the path. So the paramis can only develop with the understanding of realities, with the path leading to vipassana and enlightenment. Otherwise, the truthfulness is not parami.
But those who have developed jhana, like they know that, as we said before, that the sense objects are they don't know sense objects is not me, but they are developing a high degree of kusala by developing those jhana factors. But the result of those jhana factors could be an existence in a much higher realm for eons, but still no understanding of not me.
Right. So no development of the path even at all if there hasn't been the development of satipatthana. And that's why in some commentaries it says that actually even these attainments of jhana without the development of the path is the wrong path. in the sense that it's not leading out of samsara.
Yes, I think that's a really important point. Yes.
When that kusala that has been accumulated becomes spent, then it's back to square one, because rebirth in that higher realm, life in the higher realm ends, and there'll be rebirth somewhere else, and then it has to start all over again.
I was just thinking, oh no, not back here again. Thank you.
So unless there is the understanding right now of Dhamma as anatta, like we were chatting about at the beginning of Ikaro, unless it's the understanding, it's just hearing a Dhamma which hears, just sound which is heard, no I who can do anything, no I involved, then it doesn't lead to the path out of samsara at all. So this is why we have to always keep coming back to understanding reality at this moment. No matter it's calmness or seeing or hearing, whatever reality is, it's just a conditioned Dhamma, not I who can practice or do anything or make any kusala arise at all. And this is why Ikaro, the Buddha, just taught that there are just different namas and rupas, nothing else in life at all. So when we ask a question, what is life? There are just different chitas and cetasikas, the namas, which arise by conditions and fall away, and the rupas, which don't experience anything, like the sound or the hardness, which are conditioned and fall away. No one else, no thing else. So just chitas, cetasikas, and rupas, that's all life consists of. And even if one has attained the highest jhanas, without this basic understanding, there can never be the beginning of the path. And it's so really amazing to understand life at this moment just consists of different chitas, different cetasikas, different rupas arising and falling away. No Ikaro, no Asita, no one there, no thing there. And just for a moment, the meeting of different dharmas and then gone. And understanding this, then one sees there's no point in wishing or expecting or trying to have certain attainments or other kinds of kusala or do anything, because whatever arises now is conditioned and the understanding has to be right now. So one can just live easily, just developing understanding, but without any schedule or alarm or concern if one's thinking about politics or anything else. It's just by conditions and it's anatta. No point trying to think it shouldn't be like that, or it should be something different, or there shouldn't be a kusala, because whatever arises is conditioned right now.
Very good.
Sarah, last week at the Monday's discussion, very end of the discussion, Ajahn was talking about the relationship between the three characteristics. For instance, that there's dukkha arising because of anatta and because of impermanence. I'm wondering, I know Ajahn might not be with us today, but would somebody perhaps like to expand on how the three characteristics are related in that they can condition each other?
I think, I can't remember whether it was which session it was, but
yeah, it was the end of Monday's.
Someone asked why we always talk about anatta first. I think last time Alan also asked about the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta and why the Buddha didn't teach the Anatta Lakkhana Sutta first. But actually, when we're talking about what is impermanent is unsatisfactory. And it's not in anyone's control at all, because if it was in someone's control, they would make the pleasant feeling last, they would make panya stay longer. But what is impermanent and what is unsatisfactory is anatta, not in anyone's control at all.
Right.
And we can say that what is anatta is unsatisfactory because it cannot be made to last. So whichever way one looks at it, they're all pointing to dharmas. What is impermanent has to be unsatisfactory. What is not self has to be impermanent and dukkha. And so it's so helpful to really understand this moment of seeing as being so very brief and gone instantly. So what's the point of clinging to what is seen? What's the point of clinging to jhana or calmness or any other reality, because it's gone instantly. So as Ajahn always says, there's clinging all the time to what is nothing, like an empty bubble that's completely gone already. What's the point of trying to have calmness or trying to have anything?
Thank you. That's so
Maybe
true.
someone else would like to add more.
Not so much from what Ajahn was saying, but when you were just saying, you know, it's so impermanent. It's just falling away all the time, and yet we cling and cling and cling, and it just seems like this is crazy. But you can't help it, because there's not enough wisdom and understanding developed to actually see it. Intellectually, yes, but
just clinging
just
to empty bubbles. Like the bubbles in the toy that children have. So it's like clinging to these bubbles that are disappearing so fast.
Yeah, yes. Or like trying to catch air.
Yes.
Yes.
Sarah, do you think that suicide is directly related to not understanding realities as anatta? Because suicide it's all about me, isn't it? I am unhappy, I can't live anymore, I can't whatever. So it seems to be directly related to not understanding realities as not self.
I think it also depends on the accumulated tendency, and so I wouldn't just say it. We can say because of clinging, so there is so much unhappiness and despair, but someone may have a lot of understanding of anatta and still, because of accumulations and conditions, may feel very, very sad or not want to carry on. So I think we have to be careful about correlating certain states, like someone may be very sick and in a lot of pain, and even if there is understanding, just not be inclined to continue on in life by conditions.
Yeah,
and
I
someone
remember.
else may have no understanding of dharmas at all, but have a very happy life without ever a thought of self-harm in any way. So it depends on so many conditions.
Oh, okay, yeah. I remember the sutta about somebody who went to hang themselves because they were so unhappy, but they attained enlightenment just before. So they obviously had a good understanding of Dharma, but still they wanted to kill themselves.
Yes, different teachers at different moments. And the one who cut his throat and then died as an arahat. And so it's just different teachers at different moments. So who can say by accumulations what tendencies may arise next?
Yeah. And I think going back to what you said earlier, that the Four Noble Truths, that it is the understanding
of reality which conditions detachment, not somebody who can let go of something or other. It has to be the understanding of reality as it is, which is the condition for having less attachment.
Yes, gradually, and it's such a slow path. So
Yeah,
it doesn't
yeah.
mean if there are expectations, that it means that when understanding begins to develop, that there won't be suicidal thoughts or that everything will be easy. It's not right, because who knows what circumstances, what accumulations may arise. But
Yeah.
gradually, it's like the wearing away of the axe handle. It is understanding that will solve all problems, but it takes countless lifetimes.
Yeah, yeah.
Anything you'd like to bring up to Dao? Maybe he's not listening.
I'm listening.
Okay. Any comments or any topics you want to bring up?
No, there is one thing which I cannot understand. That is the second noble truth. I say that the cause of suffering is tanha, or desire. But when you think about dukkha in terms of viparinama dukkha, yeah, everything is dukkha by its nature, yeah, then why we have to say that the cause of dukkha is desire?
Right. So whatever arises is unsatisfactory.
Yeah.
This is dukkha.
Yeah.
And if there was no life now, if there was no experience now, there would be no dukkha, because there would be no realities arising. So without clinging, there's no more life. When clinging has been eradicated, no more life in samsara, no more dukkha. So clinging is the condition for continuing on in samsara and for the arising of dukkha again and again and again, lifetime after lifetime.
Okay.
So we don't have to think just of viparinama dukkha, but dukkha in the most general sense of arising and falling away. And then we understand the cause of dukkha is clinging.
Okay.
And when you say suffering, well, suffering is okay. It's better than some other translations like stress, but even panya now is dukkha, even calmness is dukkha, even jhana citta is dukkha, because it's impermanent, so it's not satisfactory, it's not worth clinging to at all. It's an empty bubble. So clinging is the condition for life carrying on again and again and again.
Okay. And this may be a stupid question, but is it possible, or is it not impossible, to see the Four Noble Truths in just this very moment? Can we see the Arya Satya, Chattaro Arya Satya, in this very moment?
I think that understanding begins to develop and begins to be firmer and firmer, so less and less conditions for following the wrong path or wrong practice or trying to attain or achieve anything. And this is firm intellectual understanding is such a jnana. It is the beginning of understanding the Four Noble Truths, beginning to understand that what has arisen now is dukkha, and that the cause of whatever has arisen is attachment. And it begins to understand what the path is, the only way being the development of understanding, not I doing anything, and that whatever is conditioned is unsatisfactory, and only Nibbana is the Dhamma that is not dukkha. So it is the beginning of understanding of the Four Noble Truths until it is the direct understanding of realities. And then it is Kichanyana, and that is the deeper understanding of the Four Noble Truths, leading to Katanyana when it is Vipassana Jnana understanding. So even in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, which Alan mentioned last time, and in the commentary, it refers to these 3 rounds of understanding the Four Noble Truths, Kichanyana, the Satchanyana, Kichanyana, and the Katanyana. So I think it just develops as understanding develops of each of them.
Okay. My next question is...
But others may have, Nino may have something more to add, or Robert, or anyone else, just before the next one. Does anyone else want to add anything?
I think I heard that the Four Noble Truths is not for just thinking about them, but like Sarah explained, at this moment, you have to consider the Four Noble Truths, not just some words, because anyone can say that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, carry on with your next one, because
okay,
not so much time.
I'm wondering whether there are individual differences in being aware of sense doors. What I mean is that some people are good at knowing the eye sense or eye doorways. Others may be good at understanding the ear doorways. I'm wondering whether there is such individual differences in understanding the 5 senses.
Yeah. I actually thought about the same thing when Anne mentioned at the beginning that it had never kind of occurred to her about bodily experience, and because I think it depends on accumulations and conditions as to what appears. So yes, I think it depends on accumulated tendencies. For some people, it's easier to understand sound, or sound seems more apparent than visible object, or for someone it may seem that hardness or softness is so obvious that it's what is experienced, or it may be more apparent. So it just, who knows, just depends on the accumulated tendencies as to what appears.
And it shows how anatta it is.
It is.
No control. It all depends on conditions.
And if there's any expectation that it must be visible object more than sound, or it must be this or that, then one goes wrong again. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Good for today.
Yeah. Do those in Fung Tao have anything to add on any of the topics, or anything they would like to comment on?
No, I was actually just thinking at the beginning when you were talking about the ayatanas. So just trying to make sure that I understood correctly. So the eye sense, ear sense, tongue sense, and nose sense, and body senses are the 5 inner ayatanas.
Yes.
They are the base for the object to impinge on it, and then the consciousness arises. But in the case, and then chitta is also mentioned as inner ayatana.
Yes. 6 inner ayatanas, yes.
And the reason that the heart base is not considered inner ayatana is because there's no impinging on it, or what? I'm thinking about this detail.
Yes. I think that the reason that the others are mentioned are because they are more apparent. So it's obviously visible object impinges on I sense. So I think the Buddha taught about what appears and what is apparent. And there have been so many different discussions about Hadiyawatu and who can understand the very intricate points in the teachings. So sometimes I've heard it say that it's only an ayatana when it is the object of experience. So at the moment of the very highly developed panya and chitta, which experiences Hadayawatu at that moment, the subtle rupa is experienced and it is ayatana. And at other times, more recently, I've heard it, Ajahn, I think, mention that even when it is base of chittas, it is ayatana. But really, who can know this kind of detail, these subtle points? But I think that she's also stressed that the Buddha is talking about what can be known, what is apparent now. So I sense the apparent, ear sense more apparent, even conceptually.
Yes.
Otherwise, we can just think on and on and on and forget all about what appears at this moment. I think it's a very subtle point and detail.
Thank you.
I remember when Jeff on DSG, when I was going through the Book of Elements, the Datukata in the Abhidhamma, and actually when I was going through that, I don't have the text with me, otherwise I would look it up, but it actually talks about how many khandhas there are at each moment, how many ayatanas in this, in different sections, and it's quite intricate and detailed. Perhaps the answer is there, but it's really difficult to read and consider. Do you have anything more to add on this point, Nina?
Depends whether you think of it as object or ayatana, because anything can be object. So hadaya can be for those who have developed high developed panya. The heart base can be the object. But if you think of the association or the meeting together of different objects, it's not ayatana.
But when we say that, for example, visible object impinges on eye sense, can we say the same about the object through the mind draw, that they impinges on the heart base, or what? I'm not sure about this detail, this point.
Yes. Well, I understood that the heart base is not really ayatana. We don't have to think of that. But it can be object. It's another classification by ayatana or by object.
Okay.
And because we know all the subtle rupas are included in Dhammayatana, so I think when it is experienced, then it is the subtle rupa. Yes, but in terms of when the chitta when it is Hadayawatu is the base for chittas, we could say it may be ayatana at that moment, but usually it's not referred to, because I think the Buddha, when he talked about the 5 sense bases and the chitta, he's talking about what is apparent in the association at this moment.
Okay. But not concerning on the about not containing the ayatanas, can we say that mental object impinges on the senses or not? Can we use that word for that context?
For example, at the moment of seeing, we say the visible object impinges on the eye base. We can't say the cetasikas impinge on the eye sense. They experience like the citta, they experience the visible object which has impinged on the eye sense. And they experience that visible object through the eye door. The visible object becomes the dwara for the experience of all the cittas in the sense door process, which experience the visible object. But yes.
Concept, what about concept?
Don't talk about concepts impinging because they don't arise independently of the citta of which they are the object.
Okay. And in the case...
Base for seeing and the cetasikas at the moment of seeing to arise, but it's only the visible object which impinges on the eye sense.
And in the case of mental objects like cetasikas, like the feeling, when you say that pleasant feeling is the object, can we say that it impinges on or cannot?
So when pleasant feeling is the object of citta, it has to be in the mind or process only. So at the moment of when the citta experiences pleasant feeling, then the heart base is the base for the citta to arise, and it's accompanying cetasikas, and the pleasant feeling is the object which is experienced. So we cannot say that it's impinging at that moment. Actually, the pleasant feeling itself has fallen away, so it's just the nimitta of pleasant feeling which is experienced at that moment.
What do you mean by pleasant feeling being experienced?
Pleasant feeling?
When you say when pleasant feeling is experienced.
Yes.
So what do you mean by that?
Like,
you mean when there is pleasant feeling?
Yes, like when we know that, oh, I am happy, for example.
When it arises or when it is experienced? When it arises?
When
it's different.
When it's experienced.
Through the mind door.
Through the mind door, yes. But actually it's already fallen away. So it's
already fallen away. It's just the nimitta of the pleasant feeling which is experienced. Actually, it's always the nimitta of the reality. So but even when the pleasant feeling arose, for example, the pleasant feeling that arose a moment ago with attachment, we cannot say that it impinged. It just arose together with citta and experienced object and fell away.
When there's strong pleasant feeling, that is just pleasant feeling. I don't think we can say it is experienced. It just is a pleasant feeling. If we are thinking I am very happy, then that's thinking about pleasant feeling.
Yes.
I think we have to continue this topic next time. So maybe a good topic to continue in more detail next time.